Good morning, classmates. So, this is my diagram about the branches of literature. So, literature is the broad term that encompasses all written works such as poems, stories, articles, and etc. that reflects humans' imagination, knowledge, and experience. So, under literature, there are two primary types, prose and poetry. So, let's tackle the prose first. Under the prose, there are two types, which is fiction and non-fiction. The first one is fiction. These are works created from the author's imagination. Under fiction, the first example is novel. These are long, complex narratives with developed plots and characters. An example of this is 1984 by Orwell. This is a dystopian novel about totalitarianism and surveillance. The next type is short story. These are concise narratives typically focusing on a single event or small group of characters. An example of this is Caste by Poe. This is a tale of revenge and live burial. The next one is novellas. This sits between a short story and a novel in length. It often explores a specific theme in depth. An example of this is Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This story is about immigrants and their shared dream. The next one is Fable. This is a brief story that focuses on featuring animals. It is designed to teach moral lessons. An example of this is Fox and Grapes by Aesop. This story is about the idea of dismissing what you can't have. The next type of fiction is parable. These are short allegorical stories often used to illustrate moral lessons or spiritual lessons. Example is Good Samaritan. This story can be found in the Bible. The last type of fiction is legends. These are traditional stories that sometimes regarded as historical but do not have identified authors, or these stories are unverified. For example is King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. So the next type of prose is non-fiction. Non-fiction, these are stories or works that are based on facts. The first type is history. These are works written to tell stories about the account of past events, the development of people, place, and institution. For example is Rome by Grant. This story tells about the ancient Rome. The next type of nonfiction is news. These are recent events or current events written to inform people about the recent happenings. For example is the newspaper, Philstar. It tells about the recent events happening around us. third type is biography. This is a detailed account of a person's life written by someone else. Example is Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. This tells about the life of the Apple co-founder. The next type is diary. The diary is a personal record of daily experiences. Example, Anne Frank. This tells about the happenings or life during the Holocaust. The next is anecdote. It is a short, amusing, or interesting stories about a real incident or a person. Example is a funny trip written by the traveler. The last type of nonfiction is essay, a short piece of writing on a particular subject, usually representing the author's argument or opinion. Example is The Common Sense by Paine. This essay argues about the American independence. So let's move on to the next type of literature, which is poetry. In poetry, this type of works are artistic and structured. It has rhymes, meter, or rhyme scheme. The first type of poetry is the narrative poetry. Under the narrative poetry, the first one is epic. It is a long, grand poems that tells about heroic deeds. For example, is Iliad by Homer. It recounts events during the Trojan War. And an example of epic is the Ilocano epic, which is Biag Nilamang. The next narrative poetry type is ballad. These are poems or songs that narrate a story in short stanzas, often with a consistent rhythm. An example of this is Lenore by Poe. It is about a dark and romantic poem about lost love. The last type of narrative poetry is metric tale. This is a narrative poetry with a consistent rhythm and meter. Example is Saint Agnes Eve by John Keats. It is a romantic medieval tale. Under poetry, the next type is lyric poetry. So lyric poetry, these are poems that focuses on expressing personal emotions, feelings, and thoughts, often from a first-person perspective. The first type under lyric is song, a poem designed to be set to music and song. Example of this is Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. It is known for its rich biblical imagery. The next type of lyric poetry is ode, a formal, often lengthy lyric poem, typically addressing a person, event, or a thing. Example is West Wind by Shelley. It is a tribute to the power and inspiration to the future. The next type of lyric poetry is a sonnet, a 14-line poem with a strict rhyme scheme and meter, frequently exploring themes of love or beauty. Example is Sonnet 18 by Shakespeare. It is famously comparing to the beloved to the summer's day. The next type is elegy, a mournful or contemplative poem, typically a lament for the dead or a reflection on loss. Example is Adonais by Shelley. Um, this poem is dedicated to the death of the poet John Keats. The last type of lyric poetry is idyll, a short poem or prose work describing a peaceful, idealized scene, usually of rural or pastoral life. Example is Lotus Eaters by Tennyson. It is depicting sailors tempted by a life of blissful idleness. The last type of poetry is dramatic poetry. This form is written to be performed on a stage, relying heavily on the dialogue and action to tell a story. Under dramatic poetry is the tragedy. It is a play that deals with serious and sorrowful events, leading to a disastrous outcome for the main characters. Example is Romeo and Juliet. It is a classic tale of star-crossed lovers and a tragic fate. The next type is comedy. Plays designed to amuse, often featuring humorous situations, witty dialogue, and typically ending happily. Example is Twelfth Night by Shakespeare, a romantic comedy filled with the mistaken identities. Next is melodrama. Dramatic pieces characterized by exaggerated emotions, stereotype characters, and a clear distinction between good and evil, often used for moralizing. An example of this is The Drunkard by W.H. Smith. The next type is farce, a highly exaggerated and absurd type of comedy, full of ludicrous situations, physical humor, and improbable plot twist. Example is Noises Off by Michael Frayn, a hilarious play within a play about a chaotic theatrical production. The last type of dramatic poetry is the social tale. It is a play or story that explore and comment on social issues and norms, often with a critical perspective. An example of this is A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, challenging 19th century societal expectation, particularly for women. And that's all about literature. Thank you.